The future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Selig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
A huge number out there on Cason Wallace to win Defensive Player of the Year at 500 to 1. That is worth your attention. And a number that I talked about before the season that I still think should be lower is Mark Daigneault to win Coach of the Year at 11 to 1 in the NBA. If they win 70, he's a lock for top 3. If they win 73, it's his.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
What are those things called?
A shooting star.
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that one. Like it just burns up quick. And you love it while you can see it, and bing, it's gone in the blink of an eye.
Right.
That's my fear for Cam Scatterby.
Yeah, and that's not a big deal, but I will say it's weird, and it seems like he really enjoys that attention, which is all fine because he's a young guy.
Yeah.
But possibly dangerous in a city like New York.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Close to $1 million in volume being traded right now in the Offensive Player of the Year. If you did put $100 down on Jonathan Taylor, that would pay back $143, so a 43% increase on your money that you had. There are a lot of long shots in here, but it doesn't feel like those would be good bets. Like, hey, I'm going to put it on Justin Herbert. Well, yeah, if Justin Herbert wins it, Joe, a $100 wager would pay back $10,000. They even have a market for if you want to bet Malik Neighbors.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Lane Kiffin's big decision, plus Dallas wins the number 1 pick again. Front Office Sports Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the stories that are shaping the business and culture of sports. I'm Baker Machado here in New York City, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Changing the game has always been our game. You can access NASDAQ 100 companies in just one ETF, Invesco Distributors, Inc. Now, coming up on today's show, Chauncey Billups is back in court, and could Dallas take someone Paige Beckers knows very well with the number 1 pick in the draft? But let's start in college football with the latest coaching news in today's main event. While the reported deadline for the hottest coaching candidate is just days away, as we hope to learn which sideline current Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin will be working next season. This is CBS Sports is reporting that LSU is poised to offer Kiffin $98 million, reportedly to join the Tigers. So let's bring in Front Office Sports reporter David Rumsey. So David, what do we know about Lane Kiffin in these days leading up to the Egg Bowl and when he might make his decision here?
Yeah, Baker, great to be with you as always. And just a crazy rivalry week coming up in college football. And really the focus is all on Lane Kiffin and what he is going to do in 2026. Not to mention that Ole Miss is pretty much guaranteed at this point to qualify for their very first college football playoff. Even if they lose to Mississippi State, their rival on Black Friday, which they're big favorites in, they would still probably get in the playoff with a 10-2 record. But that's not the talk. It's where is he going to be next year? What is he going to do? And we keep having these announcements for more announcements to figure out what he's going to do. And right now, the latest, as you know, Baker, is we're going to find out on Saturday, right after the Black Friday Egg Bowl, what Lane Kiffin is going to be doing next year. That's according to Ole Miss Athletic Director Keith Carter.
Okay, so this reported $98 million offer from LSU, I believe, would put him over $14 million a season, one of the highest paid coaches in college football. Do we know if that's going to be matched by Ole Miss? Because we know he has also said he would like to stay at Ole Miss as well. Do we know if Florida is offering that kind of money also?
Yeah, I think everybody at this point, among that trio of Ole Miss, LSU, and Florida, they're all willing to make Lane Kiffin the highest paid coach in college football. And that just means beating Kirby Smart's salary at Georgia right now, which is a little over $13 million. Of course, if Kiffin gets that number, maybe Georgia extends Kirby Smart again and pops Kiffin in that range. But yes, they're willing to make some big offers, maybe even up to $15 million for Lane Kiffin. And so at this point, it doesn't really seem like for him that the decision comes down to this school can pay me more, but maybe it's more so, hey, what are my resources at any given school around NIL or revenue sharing money or facilities or other kind of capital for other coaching staff hires? That anything, everything. Where do you want to live? Do you want to live in Gainesville, Baton Rouge, Ole Miss? There's those are kind of the factors. I don't think his salary is a big factor at this point because everybody is willing to pay him.
It also feels like all three of these schools are putting all their eggs in one basket to get him, and we're not really hearing a lot about who might be a backup option. If he stays at Ole Miss, where does LSU go? And same thing with Ole Miss. What do they do if he leaves? Like, who is even in talks of contention here?
Yeah, how crazy would that be if Lane Kiffin comes up on Saturday, they win the Egg Bowl, they're heading into the college football playoff, and he says, "Hey, guess what? I'm staying here." He'd really be leaving Florida and LSU both hanging out to dry there. But hey, that's certainly a possibility at this point. We really don't know. There's a lot of names, especially in the group of five, that are some head coaches there that those teams would love to keep, but are probably going to get better jobs, whether that's Tulane's John Sumrall or Eric Norris from North Texas, who's having a really nice season. So expect those coaches to probably get some Power Four jobs. I don't know if it's going to be one of those SEC jobs. I mean, even look within the SEC. Clark Lee down at Vanderbilt, he's a big name. They would love to keep him there in Nashville. But already 4 SEC teams have fired their head coaches mid-season. That's 25% of the conference. If Lane Kiffin moves on from Ole Miss, that's a fifth out of 16 SEC teams looking for a new head coach, and then we'll see what else happens around the league.
So one of these three teams is right now in the conversation for the college football playoff. The other two are not. Is there one of these jobs that's probably more attractive than the other, and is that maybe Ole Miss?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can certainly make an argument for Ole Miss, especially with the equity that Lane Kiffin has built up there in Oxford, right? He got there, and they were not what they are now. He's really building them up into a national contender. Obviously, the age of NIL and revenue sharing has helped that along. Now, I think a lot of people will probably still tell you LSU is a more premier job than Ole Miss when it just comes to all the resources of college football, donors, boosters, recruiting in-state Louisiana versus Mississippi. But things have become so national now in college football that it's not just about the state that you're in and who you can recruit there, because you can pay to get a player from California, from Florida, from wherever. All the good schools are doing that. So I think LSU is probably what the natural reaction. You would say that's the better job, and even Florida has traditionally been better than Ole Miss. But to your point, Baker, Ole Miss and really any school can be a top dog now these days.
Let's switch gears to a school that isn't going to be looking for a new head coach, and that's Florida State. There has been a lot of talk throughout the year because of the Seminoles' sort of rough year so far that maybe Mike Norvell wouldn't stay at the program. He did have about a $58 million buyout. Florida State announced this last weekend, David. He's going to stay at Florida State. Why did they decide to keep him, and was his buyout one of the reasons for that?
I think it certainly probably was a factor, but they have some deep pockets there at Florida State too. So you look at what happened with James Franklin in Penn State. You know, a lot of these big Power Four traditional powerhouses are not scared to make a move. And then, you know, Mike Norvell's a guy that would probably get a job somewhere else as well. So if he had any offset language in his contract, like James Franklin did, we saw that buyout go all the way down from almost $50 million to just $9 million because he signed a new $40+ million contract with Virginia Tech. So yeah, we've been writing at Front Office Sports for 2 years now about Mike Norvell and how much would it cost to fire him. Not because we think he's going to get fired, but because fans keep saying that they want to have him fired, and the record is just hasn't been there for Florida State ever since they had that debacle where they had an undefeated season and didn't make the college football playoff. And now moving forward, he has at least one more season. So we'll see how it goes. And you never know. I mean, these coaches, they get one more year, they get the leash extended, and then really they can get fired very early into the next season. So I think he'll still be someone whose name is on the proverbial hot seat there at Florida State.
Over the weekend, also the Raiders fired offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, who had previously just won a national championship as the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, has a very big college coaching resume as well. Do you envision a scenario where he goes back to college, and is he going to be a hot name for a lot of these schools maybe to hire?
Yeah, Chip Kelly is an interesting character. He was lured away from Ohio State with a $6 million annual salary to be offensive coordinator in Las Vegas. That was nearly triple what he was making with the Buckeyes, where you're right, he did lead them to a national championship with a really, really talent-rich roster there, a lot different than, trying to compete in the NFL, especially with a team like the Raiders, who maybe don't have those same kind of resources on the offensive side of the ball. I certainly think he'll get looks, whether that's even other NFL teams or college teams. He is kind of a controversial figure now that he's been around the block for so long, so much success at Oregon, then of course went into the NFL with the Eagles, UCLA stop. So he's been around the block. He's in his 60s now, early 60s. He's made a bunch of money. So maybe he could go into TV if he doesn't get an offer that he likes, whether it's in the college or pros, but certainly a name to watch now that he's on the market here in November.
And one of the other coaches that lost their job over the weekend was Justin Wilcox, the head coach over at Cal. We should still note Cal, a Power 4 school in an ACC conference, but are Cal and Stanford still destination jobs given the fact that they're still in big conferences?
Yeah, certainly they are in better position than maybe their former Pac-12 counterparts like Oregon State, Washington State, who are trying to rebuild that Pac-12, which is not going to be considered a power conference anymore. You know, this group of 5 is going to expand to the group of 6 with just our Power 4 conferences. But yeah, I mean, though Cal and Stanford have really struggled this year, the second year in the ACC, and you know, obviously there's the coast-to-coast travel, whether it's them going over to the East Coast to play a lot of these teams in the Atlantic Coast Conference, you know, from the West Coast, or the ACC teams going to California to play. You know, it's been kind of a mess all around as far as the travel. You know, they're figuring it out, but certainly it's not ideal. So yeah, it's tough. And a school like Cal or Stanford maybe doesn't have the same NIL budget, all the boosters really funding athletics that you might see in the SEC or Ohio State or Texas or something like that. So yeah, it is tough to compete.
Yeah, still just so weird to even say Cal, an ACC school. David Rumsey, good stuff as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Baker.
He's the fan favorite. They love talking about Stafford, the 38-year-old guy. He's the Super Bowl champ. We got the family. Any opportunity to pump McVay and Stafford as a team, they do that. They love this team. They love Aaron Donald, and rightfully so. Best defensive player, but they love to pump up Stafford.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
When you look at Duke, you got to look at Cam Boozer. 18 points. The Bruiser, I may call him. 18 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. I know he shot the ball 1 of 4 from 3, but he's showing his ability to really be a different player than his dad. A little bit more dynamic, a little bit more athletic.
College Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Ashton Genty has been hit behind the line of scrimmage more than any player in the National Football League. Yep. So you just gave him the ball in the end zone. Do the math. How's that going to work out?
It's like what I said earlier.
You got hit behind the line of scrimmage. You got tackled in the end zone.
Yeah.
Oh, they're terrible. But the thing is, Brady, you draft offensive linemen before you draft a star running back. Like they went backwards.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Goff and Mahomes were never taken serious. Hurts won't be, even if they're the 1 seed. Jonathan Taylor plays running back. Stop. Mahomes lost the head-to-head to Josh. Can I confidently eliminate every single person booked behind Josh Allen to at least beat out Josh Allen? So I'm in a head-to-head with Stafford May?
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. In football, changing the game begins with rethinking it, like rethinking how players work on their game. With wearable technology, advanced analytics, AI, and more, that same innovative thinking that changes the game could also change your portfolio. And Invesco QQQ gives you access to the innovators who are rethinking the world. So let's rethink possibility. Well, the Dallas Wings will receive the #1 pick for the second year in a row, this after they won the WNBA draft lottery. So who might Paige Becker's team select this year? Let's get into that and so much more with FOS reporter Colin Salau. Colin, before we dive into the WNBA and the Dallas Wings, let's start with Chauncey Billups. He was in court today related to the NBA gambling investigation. How did it go? What do we know?
Yeah, so Billups was in court today. His case is about more of the illegal poker rings. That's separate from the Terry Rozier case, but he pled not guilty in a case that has about 30 plus defendants. The judge set a bail for him for $5 million, which apparently, according to Ramona Shelburne, his house in Colorado was used as collateral. But he did plead not guilty, and more updates on the case. The next update on the case will be March 4th.
And I believe March 4th, almost all of those people will have to be in court for that time as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing two separate cases here, but we have 30 plus defendants. That was always the big thing with this case, that there's so many defendants, but the big names were the NBA players and or coaches.
Yeah. Let's move to the WNBA for the second year in a row. As I mentioned, Colin, Dallas gets the number one pick. What's interesting here is how the draft lottery in the WNBA sort of works, because Dallas had increased odds to get the number one selection because of how bad they did this year and last year.
Yeah, the WNBA accounts for the last two seasons. That is their way of sort of fighting against tanking. The Connecticut Sun are the perfect example. The Connecticut Sun had, I believe, were 11-33 last year. Again, one of the worst records in the league. But their pick, which actually was traded to Chicago, had the lowest odds of winning the first overall pick, because 2 seasons ago, as many may recall, they beat Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever in the first round of the playoffs. They were one of the better teams in the league. So that's the way that the WNBA combats tanking. Also because obviously they have a lot less teams, so it makes it a little bit easier or a little bit harder, I guess, for tanking.
Yeah, and so the number one pick, a lot of people thinking maybe Dallas could select Connecticut's AZ Fudd with that number one pick. Obviously, Paige Beckers went to UConn, so obviously that connection's huge as well. But also, AZ Fudd is dating Paige Beckers.
Yeah, AZ Fudd is not by no means the consensus number one pick in terms of mock drafts that we're seeing. But I find it very funny. Like, just look at ESPN's mock draft. AZ Fudd was number 4 just 3 days ago. And then the Dallas Wings win the number 1 pick, and she's now number 1 in their latest mock draft. But it makes a lot of sense because of her connection to Paige Beckers. You want to be able to keep satisfying your star. Beckers is a transformational talent, a generational talent. There were already a lot of conversations early before Beckers was even drafted about whether she wanted to even stay in Dallas. So for her to go there and then now potentially have her romantic partner, her girlfriend, be selected, it only makes sense. And they've already seen success before, winning the national championship earlier this year, actually. And Fudd was the best player in the Final Four. It wasn't actually Paige Beckers. So you know that Fudd has a lot of talent. So I think there's a lot of potential for that to be the direction that the Wings go. And just one thing here that I wanted to point out is it's not new in the WNBA for teammates to be dating. We've seen championship teams, Allie Quigley and Courtney Vandersloot, the backcourt of the Chicago Sky when they won the championship in 2021. They were married.
Given the fact we're seeing still the sort of reverberations of the Luka trade and the fiasco that has happened with the Mavericks, do you almost feel like that this goes into the decision-making process for the Wings here, that they, have to make sure that Paige Beckers is really sort of happy here, given the fact that the Mavericks sort of sabotage so much with Luka Doncic? I
mean, obviously the ownership groups are completely different. In fact, the Dallas Wings don't even play in Dallas yet. They will soon. But I do believe that there's a certain level of understanding when it's right in your backyard or in your neighborhood that this thing has happened, right? That what's happening in Dallas from your NBA team is something that you're seeing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, and the reaction of the fans. When the Wings won the draft last year, it was kind of a big deal for them. And then when the Mavericks won the draft lottery as well, everyone was saying, oh, this is they tied the two teams together. So it's no shock that even though the ownership group is different, there is a way to tie all of these together. And I'm sure it's a big deal for Dallas, at least the ones who follow both teams, that they're able to have at least one other team to root for
right now.
All right, let's move to the Toronto Raptors. I didn't envision you and I would be talking about the Raptors at this point in the season, but they're one of the hottest teams right now in the NBA. And going into the offseason, Colin, their biggest offseason move was firing their longtime president of basketball operations and general manager. But they made no other changes after that. And most of the success of this team right now is built on the moves that he had made.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to take a look because Masai Ujiri made several questionable moves ever since the big trade that landed Kawhi Leonard and helped them win their first championship back in 2019. He's made questionable moves in terms of giving massive 9-figure contracts to the likes of Jakob Poeltl, Manuel Quickley, and Brandon Ingram last year. Scotty Barnes was a great draft pick for them, but he's kind of plateaued, it seemed, before this year, and they gave him a max extension of $224 million. So it always felt like, they are somewhat in the middle, at least over the last few years. When in 2013, when Masai first took over, he said, we don't want to be in the middle. And it kind of feels like that's what the direction the team went after they won the championship. But they're 12-5. They're second in a weak Eastern Conference that, anything could potentially happen there. And to your point, not only are the players people that are acquisitions of Masai Ujiri, the current general manager is Bobby Webster, who was Masai's first hire when he first joined the team in 2013. So a lot of Masai Ujiri's footprints are still in Toronto. But also I want to say and caveat that it's only been a month.
Yeah, and Toronto, by the way, second right now in the Eastern Conference. Colin Salau, thank you so much. Good stuff as always. And coming up, the big topic of conversation over the weekend was, where will Trinity Rodman sign? We'll tell you what she told us next.
Let's play our game of buy or sell. Buy or sell. Thursday night football should end after week 10, George. You're going to buy or sell this?
It's too short a week. It's not healthy for the players. You'll never be able to convince me otherwise here. The NFL will tell you, stats tell us no, it's not more injuries. And that's all BS. All right. Should it end after week 10? In a perfect world, there should be no Thursday night games. Should it end after week 10? Sure, I'll buy this. But it's not going to. There's too much money here. It's never going to end, all right? They're going to have it forever. You're lucky there's not a Friday, Saturday schedule as well, and there's some laws involved there as to why there's not. The NFL is going to have a schedule or for any day they can get here. It's all about money here. And if the players don't want it, by the way, you got to realize, you're going to lose a significant chunk of revenue out of your salary as well here.
Right.
So I'll buy this, but it doesn't matter. It's not going away.
Yeah, George just basically said everything that I was going to say, so the games, so of course I'll buy it. The games are not good. Generally, the home team has a big advantage. If not, the teams are not prepared to play on Thursday night. Yes, there have been some upsets and some underdogs winning. We saw it Thursday night. But the quality of play on Thursday is lower than what it is on the weekends. And there's no end in sight to it because of what George said, the money. That's just all that matters. If Amazon Prime doesn't take it, Netflix will take it. If they don't take it, Apple will take it. If they don't take it, somebody else will take it. I don't know. Hulu, I don't know. You make it up. Someone will. So it is not going away. And, generally speaking, I'm excited every week when the games begin and then I forget and then the games usually stink. And I'm like, oh, gosh, this game wasn't good anyway. So George is right. Not going away because of the money.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday, starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and let's see what's bubbling over at the FOS water cooler. And joining me is our senior producer, John Shames, back from San Jose from the NWSL Championship. Good to see you, Shames.
Hey, it's great to see you too, Baker. I had a great weekend that we're going to dive into shortly, but you also had a pretty great weekend over in Las Vegas at F1. What was the scene like over there?
Vegas is crazy in general, but let alone having F1 there where they have all of the Las Vegas Strip completely barricaded for this race. Congratulations, by the way, to Max Verstappen, who won the F1 race on Saturday night. I got the chance to speak with Maya Voog, who was one of the finalists to win the F1 Academy. She didn't end up winning over the weekend, but you can watch that video over on our YouTube. But it was an amazing time in Vegas. I mean, I spent all of my money at the blackjack table, so I'm much more poor coming back home, which means it's a good Vegas trip.
Yeah, you weren't feeling lucky, but I'm sure you owned the weekend, Baker. Represented FOS well for us out there.
Thank you. But let's talk about all the stuff that you got at NWSL, the championship this weekend. Obviously, Gotham FC, the big winners there, and you spoke to the owners, obviously, of Gotham FC and really this dynasty that they've built there.
Yeah, I think there is an argument for that, Baker. To set the stage for the weekend in general, we were out there with Leslie Osborne, who we've worked a ton with in the past. Co-owner over at Bay FC, one of the co-founders who were hosting the event, despite being an expansion team just a few years ago, which felt like a microcosm for the growth of the NWSL as a whole, that they were able to bring this into town and execute it so well. At this Radio Row, Baker, we had great access to Jessica Berman, the commissioner of the league. We spoke with Trinity Rodman, one of the league's rising stars and arguably the face of NWSL right now. Or at least who everyone's talking about, which we'll get into. But yes, you mentioned we spoke with Carolyn Tisch as well, who is the owner of Gotham FC, or one of the owners, I should say. Her family also is a part owner of the Giants, and she saw a lot of similarities between the run that Gotham FC is having this year and the run of a famous Giants team back in the day, Baker. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Yeah, so I'm actually so happy you brought that up, because I said when we won in Kansas City and it was, backs against the wall, no one believed in us, I turned around and I said to everyone, I'm like, I don't know if this means anything to you, but this is exactly like the 2007 Giants Super Bowl run, because it was a team that nobody believed in, everyone counted out against the Patriots, and then there we were, road team all the way through, and we beat them. And so, there's so many different lessons in how to run a team, but I think to your point on culture, really identifying what is your culture and saying, we've always, when you talk about coaches or players, they can always identify what it means to be a part of the New York Giants organization. And that's something that I don't think we had in the past that we very much have now, is what a player means when they say, I want to be a part of Gotham. We know what that means now.
Baker, Carolyn took over ownership in 2023 and really changed the culture around. And, she spoke to about how hard it was to kind of permeate into that for the first time. But really impressive to see what Gotham is doing. And by the way, 8 seeds in both years now, and eventually winning the championship. Just sensational stuff.
And let's talk also about Trinity Rodman, because a lot of people are talking about, is this a big deal if Trinity Rodman does leave the NWSL and goes to Europe, because there's a lot of European teams that are really interested in her. And what does this sort of mean for the league if they can't really hold on to their best players?
Yeah, that was a big theme of this weekend, Baker. And we spoke to Trinity herself, who definitely knew the question was coming and basically said, I don't even know, and I think everyone's kind of speculating about what's best for her. And ultimately it needs to kind of be what she wants to do. There's a lot of discussion about where the league is positioned relative to other international women's soccer leagues and how the implementation of the salary cap in NWSL impacts that.
Yeah, and you would think that the NWSL wants to keep those top players, but there's also an argument to be made. Look, if all their European leagues want the top players in this league, that also shows that the league has really sort of upped the game with the amount of talent that they got. Shames, what are we watching on this Monday?
Yeah, Baker, we've got quite a good slate here tonight. Over in the NBA, quick banger alert at 7 o'clock, Cavaliers at Raptors. We talked about the Raptors earlier on the show and what they're doing, winners out of 11 of their past 12. Going up another 12-win team here in Cleveland, so that's going to be a fun one. Also on my favorite destination to watch NBA games this season, Peacock. Over in the NFL, potential stage setter for some better action this week, we would hope. It's Panthers at 49ers, 8:15 on ESPN. And then over in the men's college basketball world, a top 25 matchup, number 13 Gonzaga versus number 11 Alabama. That's going to be 9:30 on TNT. Baker, I love to see that despite TNT losing out on the NBA, they're still getting some good must-see action, especially for their basketball audience too.
Yeah, all these games in Vegas all day today, are so good. I mean, you've got Notre Dame in Kansas, you've got St. John's, Iowa State. I mean, there's basically every hour there's a good game in Vegas that you can be able to watch today. So it feels very March Madness like today.
just getting ready for the big stuff.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Shames, thank you as always, and we'll be back with more Front Office Sports Today tomorrow. We'll see you later.